really hot.
Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy. Okay, so welcome back, everybody, to, I just realized it's the 7th episode already of GM Show. Crazy. Karen, what is the GM Show for all our new listeners?
So if you're new, this is a show that is powered by Memeland, but it's not just about Memeland. It's about Web3 show bringing Asia to the world. The ABC of the GM Show is Asia focused, builder friendly, and cool vibes only. If you're not on our Twitter, please follow GM Show Official. Please follow Memeland on Twitter and Discord. Shout out to some of the listeners today. We have Marco, we have a DB Crypto. Hello, guys. So good to have you. We have some listeners that's just coming back every week, so it's good to see some familiar faces.
There are a lot of potatoes and a lot of babies in the audience there. That's great to see. Thanks a lot for everyone retweeting and sharing and dropping comments in every time we announce a new show and a new guest. Every little bit helps, and so we thank you for making the comments out there. As you probably know, we're streaming on YouTube at the same time on Twitter Spaces. So if you want to watch us, you can see us on YouTube. I think it's youtube.com/GM Show Official, or here on Twitter at GM Show Official as well. Before we get any further, let's hear a little let's hear a piece from our chairman.
Discussed on the GM Show is not investment advice. We may or may not have ownership interests in the projects we are talking about, but this is not investment advice in any way, shape, or form. And this is not Sir David Attenborough.
All right. Just a little bit of a legalese there before we get started. Okay, so I just wanted to say we have a lot of live events that are coming out as we head into summer. Last week, we had Location, TBA, and Carl come on talk about the Azuki's events, right?
Yeah, Vegas.
But starting today or tomorrow, they're already kicking off in Las Vegas. There's a lot of community events. The Friday night is the Fall of the White Rabbit Party. And it looks like an amazing experience. Like the community is super helpful there to put all these events on in Las Vegas. And it sounds great. I wish we could be there. But good luck to Location, Carl, Zagabon, and the whole team. We can't wait to see hopefully have somebody come on next week and tell us what happened.
I wondered what they're going to announce. So that's going to be something
That's the big thing. Yeah. For Azuki holders, pretty exciting stuff. So that's cool. Also next week, there's tons of stuff going on, right? Next week, I'm heading to Toronto for Collision. You can meet me and Memeland head of product,
Kevin Yoon.
We're doing like a Web3 takeover in Toronto on Sunday night. And there's a lot of Web3 stuff going on. We're also doing an Invest HK Web3 Founders Party on the 29th, where Yatsu will be like the guest of your honor, the guy from Animoca with the Mochaverse and things like that. So he'll be there. Kevin will be there. I'll be there. No Ray, no Karen yet, but that's in Toronto next week. And then, but also next week, bringing it back to Asia, Japan is crypto crazy next week. Actually, starting now, it's the Japan Blockchain Week in Tokyo, and it starts already now, and it runs until the first week of July. But I guess the big one is that some of my friends are running the IVS Crypto in Kyoto, and it seems like a pretty big event. So IVS is Infinity Ventures. They usually put on a startup conference every year in some amazing city in Japan, and this year, I guess the crypto unit, they have a crypto fund as well, and they're doing a special event in Kyoto. And the most exciting thing about it is that the prime minister is going to be there, Fumio Kishida. Awesome. And so that means that's a pretty big, that's like having John Lee come out to a Memeland conference and saying, we're all going forward on a Web3 thing. And Joey Ito, who is also the co-founder of Digital Garage, these people are the main speakers there are like all the more important people in tech in Japan. So having them come together for a crypto conference there is pretty amazing. And then if you go back to Tokyo, there's all kinds of stuff going on there as well. I think there's this weekend is Non-Fungible Tokyo. There's an art show going on. Sony has a Web3 demo day. There's an event called Web3 BB. And there's a Web3 entertainment event called Boost Connect. So these are all overlapping events that happen over these 2 weeks in Japan. Yeah. Wow, seems crazy, right? What do you think about that? You're not going to go there, right? You just came back to Japan.
Yeah, Japan is they pick Kyoto. It's pretty zen to have like a crypto event. There would be there would be like really good food, I think. But then I think having a community come together and like having these conferences, it's not just about like listening to what people are building, but like more like making connections, right? Like and making friends. I think people are more excited about like the side events and like get to meet people in real life. Not people like probably people that you've seen on Twitter but not knowing their face. So getting docs basically.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be a good time, I think, for all. Actually, Ray Chan is here. He's just dropped me a message, and he just says that he heard that the Japanese government is setting up an NFT fund. And I heard that too. That's probably why the prime minister's there. They're probably going to announce that fund at the event. So that's huge. The government is investing in Web3 in Japan. I mean, Japan, I think, has a lot of great talent there and a lot of great stuff. And I think that even in Hong Kong, we're all very influenced by Japan. So I feel like exciting to see. I hope they can do some amazing stuff there for Web3.
Yep.
And then also, Japan's not the only place that's cracking in Asia. I just quickly looked at the calendar. So just since I'm talking about events for this segment of the show, I also wanted to point out that Korea Blockchain Week is the first week of September, the 4th to the 10th. The last couple of years has been huge. So, and of course, as we all know, there's a massive crypto scene in Korea and Seoul. So take a look at that. Karen and I are going to Singapore for Token 49, September 13th and 14th. We're going to be there. We're going to record a live GM show there with the Singapore community and some of the meme land holders and there's an Azuki group down there. There's everybody down there. So it's gonna be exciting.
With the F1, like the background.
F1, right, exactly. It's going to be huge, massive. Like September is going to be crazy for crypto in Asia. And then we get a little bit of break. And then Hong Kong, we have our FinTech Blockchain Week in October 30th to November 5th, which we'll get more and more in detail as we get closer to it. We want to invite some of the people who are organizing that to come on the show and talk about what's going on there. And then finally, in December, I know, crazy, right? It's just so much stuff going on. Taipei Blockchain Week, organized by Bujidao. I went there last year. It was incredible. I was very impressed with what those guys are building down there. So 4 major conferences, 5 if you include Japan right now in Asia. So I definitely think keep that in your calendars if you're going to join us. And we hopefully will be at all of them, either in attendance or hosting something there. I think that we got to get Ray out to one of these events. It's so close.
Action-packed.
Taiwan is just an hour away from Hong Kong. So
yeah, this year is like going to be busy.
It's going to be busy. Okay. All right. So let's get on to the next segment. We're going to talk a little bit from sponsors. Who's our sponsor today? Let's take a listen.
Today's show is not sponsored by YouTube. Enjoy the videos and music you love, upload original content, and share it all with friends, family, and the world on YouTube. Watch me and the GM show on YouTube. And guys, I'm not Steve Carell.
Well, that's not really our sponsor, but again, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, please let us know and we will do a little creative spin-off, I don't know. I mean, like, these are all just like very creative ways to put your message out there. So,
maybe you'll write a song. You can write a new song.
Yeah, maybe I'll write a song. I wrote a song. It's now a hit, right?
That's right. It's a hit song. If you didn't hear last week, Karen debuted her new hit single on Spotify. It's called
Give Me Codes.
It's up there. Got tons of downloads after last week's show. We're going to play it again at the end of the show so you can hear it. But take a listen.
I just want to update about the giveaway last week. So we have selected 69 winners on Twitter for our last week meme coin waitlist code giveaway, and we'll make an announcement soon. So please check our tweets and instructions on how to claim your codes and enter that wait list that you've been asking for.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's it. We'll get this out of the way.
All right. Yes. Everybody's waiting and clamoring for our guest this week. Everybody wants to know about Web3 marketing, what it is, how they can do it better, what's the possibilities and opportunities there. So we're very excited to bring on the CEO of Web3 marketing firm at Serotonin. And she's also the first CMO at Consensus, who, as everybody knows, launched MetaMask. She's an early crypto entrepreneur. She brought Ethereum to market at Consensus as the chief marketing officer from 2016 to 2019 and built the first Web3 marketing team. That means, like I said, she brought MetaMask and one of the premier ETH wallets in the world. After working there, she founded Serotonin, the marketing firm and product studio. So I think she left. We'll talk to her about this, but I think she left just before the pandemic, right? And so she started off. She saw the heat coming in this market and started her own marketing firm. And she also has an in-house product studio that incubates and spins out software companies. And they've spun out their first thing called Mojito, which is an NFT e-commerce infrastructure platform. And it's used by Sotheby's, CA, and Prada already. So we'll talk to her about that. But the main thing that I met Amanda at a Web Summit last year, but this is the reason why I wanted to bring her on, because her first book just got released not too long ago. It's called Web3 Marketing, a handbook for the next internet revolution. It is the essential book for anyone looking to understand the next era of the internet and start building, which is what this show is all about. Yeah. Beyond the hype, beyond the headlines around crypto and NFTs, a real revolution is taking place. New technologies for owning, moving, and organizing value spell the overdue end of the internet, where a few huge companies hoard data and power, and open a new frontier for product, service, and application in which ownership and control can belong to creators, builders, and users. So we're super excited to welcome Amanda Cassatt. GM Amanda.
Hello. Hello, Amanda.
GM, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So where are you right now, Amanda?
I'm at home in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Well, awesome. What time is it there?
Wow.
It's 9:15 p.m.
Okay.
Just about to go make my cup of tea and go to bed after this. One last chat.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to get into a lot of different things around your career and your book and what you're doing right now. But let's just start from the top, putting on your marketing hat right now. Let's start. What's happening in Web3 right now from your vantage point? And it's probably more US centric. So we're working now in 2023 at this kind of, market that it looks like today.
Well, it's interesting. Our vantage point at Serotonin is actually pretty global. We've seen a huge pickup in demand lately from APAC, especially from companies and venture capital channel partners in Hong Kong and Singapore lately. And we're actually going strongly into the region and planning to open an office there later this year, probably in Hong Kong. So be on the lookout for that. But
what?
From the US.
There, right?
Yeah.
Heavy right at the beginning of the show. People usually wait till the end.
Looking for hire.
Exactly.
There's from Hong Kong.
Yeah, that too. And we'll also be doing a lot of the same stops as you guys. Korea Blockchain Week, Token 2049. I'm going to also try to spend some time in Hong Kong then. So maybe we can all meet up and record again in person.
And dim sum is the main thing that we do. Yes, amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just.
But yeah, so from the.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I was going to say, like, from the US centric side of things, a lot of the conversation in the last few weeks has been about regulatory challenges. Yeah. And you have these simultaneous forces of this Wells notice for Coinbase, this action against Binance. It seems like the SEC in particular is trying to come after some of the big centralized exchanges and also some of the token projects themselves. And then in the last couple of days, in the US, you also see this real countervailing force, which has been called the BlackRock pivot, where some really large institutional scale businesses in the US that actually have a lot of regulatory sway have been very vocally pro-crypto. So BlackRock's ETF application for a Bitcoin ETF was just approved, and that's getting a lot of people excited. We also saw Citadel, also with Fidelity and Schwab back a crypto exchange that's now live. So we're seeing these two kind of conflicting forces where certain branches within the US government appear to be pursuing centralized exchanges and individual token projects. And at the same time, some of the biggest institutional players are actually pushing through really vocal support. So we really see both sides happening in tandem right now. And the recent BlackRock ETF has actually pushed us out of our previous band for Bitcoin. And so that's having a global impact.
How does that affect the marketing, the brand side of it, the people that you work with? Does it give people more of a security that, it's more like, because honestly, that's definitely the thing I feel when I see events happening in Europe and in Asia, everything's like going crazy. But I'm in the States, it feels like people are like backing out because of this, because of what's going on in the SEC and things like that, right? Do you think that, but you work with international brands, like you said, right? So, but you can see, like, I remember reading your book, you're like, your inbox, your inbound inbox is full of people requesting marketing support and things like that. And then how does it look like today when it's got this kind of uncertainty going forward?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, crypto and Web3 are going to happen, and there are going to be some jurisdictions on planet Earth that are friendly to it. And crypto founders and crypto companies are able to be fairly agile in terms of where they choose to work and where they choose to domicile.
Right.
So there's a huge opportunity for various jurisdictions to be pro-crypto. And we're not just seeing that in places like Hong Kong lately, Singapore, Dubai for a long time. We're also seeing the EU pass MiCA legislation with significant carve-outs for DeFi. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. There are rumors swirling that the UK plans to pass even more friendly legislation, which is really encouraging. Yeah. And so all these different parts of the world are opening up. And there are also forces in the US that wish for the US to continue being a leader and are pushing for that as well. So I think it's too early to make the call that crypto businesses should leave the US. It's far too early to make that call, in my opinion. At the same time, it's been a real boon for activity going on all over the world. And this is a decentralized movement, and it should happen everywhere. And there should be local startup founders, local investors everywhere. And so I'm really excited about that. One thing we've seen lately at Serotonin, last month, of all the new business we took on, only 10% of it was domiciled in the US.
Wow.
Which is a really big shift.
Wow.
Most of our book is still US based. And we have started hearing more investors ask the question, do you have an entity outside the US of their potential investment targets? It's not saying you should move, it's not saying you should be somewhere else, but it's a question. Are you hedged against regulatory risk? And so once again, I'm still very optimistic that regulators in the US are going to come out with nuanced, thoughtful legislation. I think it's been great how Coinbase in the US has been pressing the government to come out with that faster. And ultimately, when you're talking about big brands, the assurance that they need to go into Web3, especially if they're US companies, is that regulatory clarity. Nothing brings growth like regulatory clarity. And a lot of folks, both institutional capital and brands that would come in a more kind of entertainment consumer side, have been waiting on the sidelines or building projects but not launching them, waiting for that clarity to come down the pipe. So really excited to see that happen, and very supportive of those, putting pressure on getting clarity.
So what's like the potential you see in Asia? As you mentioned, like you guys are going into Singapore or Hong Kong. Like, what do you see there that is like not been seen in the US or Europe market?
Yeah, well, and it depends. It's very country by country in APAC, and that's what we're learning. But depending on what country you look at Malaysia, you look at India. There are lots of folks that are young, that are really tech savvy, that are used to mobile, and you're also already seeing really kind of dense crypto penetration in those communities. So a lot of people are already using crypto. And so a lot of applications there can get more user numbers faster, and then be able to test their products better and optimize their products. And if you look at the software products that have really thrived in APAC, it's ones that have benefited from data and scale, and have been able to optimize fast because of that. And I think that's a real promise in the region. And I also think local founders are going to be able to build things as opposed to folks from the outside coming in. And so I think the builder ecosystem there is going to be really important to foster. We see a lot of investment and a lot of capital coming out of Hong Kong, coming out of Singapore, but that needs to get paired with local builder communities there. I'm aware of a really great Web3 builder scene in Bangkok, really growing in Thailand, and really want to see that kind of open source builder dev community thrive, because that pairs really well with the presence of investment dollars.
Yeah, that makes sense. I noted. I'm glad you pulled up Bangkok. I know a lot of people move to Bangkok and Bali and those places as well. They also they have NFT events everywhere in every city. And sometimes when you hear NFT Bali, you're like, I don't know how serious these guys are. They're like partying out there or whatever. But there is quite a bit of a thing going on out there. And I noticed that, this was just in the news today. Hong Kong beat Singapore again for the most expensive city in Asia. I don't know, for expats, right, coming out. They just can't believe how expensive it is. Even my friends who are in Hong Kong will start moving to Bali and to Bangkok to escape the high rent. Still be in Asia, it's a couple hours away from Hong Kong if they need to come back, but they're building in these kind of ecosystems. And then, I guess a lot of builders are out there. A lot of people working on open source are hanging out there. They love the lifestyle. They have they have everything they need there, fast internet, and then the community is super important, I guess, for building out these things. And that's something that, I think Hong Kong as a city needs to understand as well. It's not just about money. It's not just about a push towards it, but it's a lot about making sure the right people are in town who are building and networking. So I'm excited to hear that you're opening an office there, having you as a presence there, having Serotonin as a presence in Hong Kong. I think will let people know this is something that everybody should keep their eyes on. And take a look at Hong Kong as a potential place to base out of. But I personally love Hong Kong, but I feel like it's like all of Asia is getting a lot of the attention now. There's a lot of stuff going on across Asia, even places like Vietnam, which were kind of like mini hotspots for Web2 startups because of the cost efficiency. A lot of smart people that are there working on this stuff. It's all the stuff growing out of there. So I can't even call what would be the hotspot city amongst all of them, but I still think it'll be Hong Kong, Singapore, just because of the regulation, the law, and the kind of government push in that space. But anyways, we'll see. It's great to hear your input and hear your theories on that. I want to take back a little bit and just give people a little context on your career, because I think one of the most exciting things that you worked on was being at Consensus at the most exciting time there, and you were the first CMO, and you learned a lot about ETH and the whole crypto and the whole market. So you're probably one of the leading experts in this, working so closely to this and also launching so many products. Can you give us a little bit? I know there's a lot of this in your book, so I don't want people should buy your book to read more about it, but maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that you learned that you thought, or like 3 things that maybe you learned that you would like to pass on to new people working in marketing or trying to come into this industry, that you learned that you're like, wow, this is something that I would definitely tell the next person to keep their eye out on.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was hiring the first Web3 marketing team to get the word out about Ethereum, we couldn't hire marketers with traditional skill sets. In the US, at least, the traditional marketing skill set had become running these big paid campaigns on the social media platforms. So like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you would just optimize these paid campaigns on those platforms, and your revenue would come out of an arbitrage between the cost of acquiring a customer and the lifetime value of that customer to your platform. That model works fine if you're hawking vitamin waters with influencers on Instagram, but it doesn't work if you're building an open source development platform and trying to attract builders to that platform to then build their own applications and then to try to broadcast those applications as use cases for your technology. You simply can't calculate that ROI, and it's not this matter of just putting out spend on these channels. It's a much more complicated multi-channel process, and it's a much more complicated model for attribution. And so we needed to break out, and plus also those platforms had banned crypto at that point, so you couldn't even run a paid ad on those platforms if you tried. So we had to really go back to the growth hacker roots of the marketing discipline and go back to the basics, which is like, who is your audience? Well, at the beginning, it was developers. What is your product? Well, at the beginning, it's come use Ethereum, learn LLL, learn Solidity, come start building. What messages resonate with those people? What do they care about? What are they paying attention to? And what we found when we went back to the basics is that developers were getting excited about this software and coming together to talk about it in meetup groups. And certain people in cities all around the world, not just in New York and San Francisco, but in Sao Paulo, in Budapest, in Bangkok, were coming together, and they were raising their hands saying, I'm going to be, the Bangkok Ethereum meetup organizer. And so we realized that was happening. And what we did is organize the organizers. We created a group for all of the people that were these meetup organizers to coordinate. And we offered them professionalized materials so that they could look more polished. We offered them money for beer and pizza, not very much, or the culturally relevant equivalent to that, so that they could feed and water people. We curated kind of a roving presentation of different new dApps that were being built to go on road shows to all of the different meetup groups around the world. And that would help them get feedback and users. And then all the meetup group organizers would have a fresh supply of content. And so, just picking that apart and into the pieces there, you asked for 3 pieces. One is, you don't have to do everything yourself in Web3 marketing. You should look at what people are already starting to do. Look at those little sparks and you blow oxygen on those sparks. And that's how it blows up. You don't have to do all of it yourself. And because of that, your incentive isn't actually to grow a giant centralized marketing team. It's to be able to, over time, outsource your marketing to your community that has their own set of intrinsic and extrinsic incentives to then go ahead and grow that. And then over time in Web3 marketing, you want to decentralize the marketing function to the community and have them leading that function. And so when we're talking about Web3 marketing, we're talking about incentive design, we're talking about community, and we're talking about solving the 0 to 1 problem of plugging the early community into the incentive design. And then from there on, it should be pretty self-marketing.
There's a chapter in your book called the Community Starship. So you treat a spaceship. So you treat it more like an alien landing in the thing. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that was a great analogy.
Yeah, we always talk about this. So when you're a founder and you're just starting to build your Web3 project and it has 0 community, you have total control over who the first people are going to be that come into that community. Later on, when your community has hundreds, thousands, millions of people in it, you've lost control. And it is whatever it is. And what's going on in there is either going to attract or put off the kind of community member that you want. But whatever it is, at that point, you're stuck with it. And so at the very beginning of your project, as a founder, you want to do things that don't scale and have individual conversations, figure out who people are, make sure you're getting people into your community that care about the subject matter of what you're doing, that care about the mission, that want to actually build and contribute in some way, that aren't just waiting for some shallow extrinsic reward, but that actually, care about the project. You bring those people together, you curate that conversation, and then you'll attract more of the kind of people you want. And the analogy is, imagine some aliens landed from outer space and put down a ladder somewhere on planet Earth, and a group of people walk up the ladder, then the spaceship flies off forever, and those are the people they've got for thousands of years to colonize their planet. And those are your people. So choose them really wisely and take advantage of that moment early on when you have control.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's a great analogy.
That's kind of what Memeland is building as well. I think most of these NFT projects, though, I feel like they've kind of naturally figured that part out, right? But I always wonder, how do you scale that to like a corporate brand, though? Right? We see a lot of these brands are getting involved in this, like Prada and Nike and stuff like that, but their user base is so mass, like they can't really control that as much. Do you think?
Yeah. And how do you like transform their audience? Yeah.
So here's just like really simply what I would suggest to a big brand that's getting into the space. You can do a big blast to a huge swath of your fans about how you're doing something in the Web3 space that is some kind of claimable, that involves people going to some site, connecting their wallet and claiming something, maybe like a retroactive distribution of a reward for some past behavior. And then after that blast, only the people that like that and care about it are going to actually go claim the thing. And so you're going to be able to segment out the subset of your audience that likes that and cares about that, and then never blast the whole audience again. Just give them that one opportunity to get involved and opt in. And then you'll attract the Venn diagram overlap segment of your community that both is a fan of your product and also into Web3 without bothering the rest of them too much. So that's how I think about doing it for them. And then a lot of what I'm seeing from the bigger brands and companies is, and I get to see a lot of what's going to happen maybe 6 months ahead of launching these things, is memberships, rewards, loyalty programs. So you're getting a lot of types of, yeah, exactly, like Starbucks, a lot of types of programs that aren't actually market dependent. So they're not trying to sell a crypto asset that's going to float on the open market, that people are trading, to try to make a profit. What they're doing is the equivalent of airline miles or airline points, but they're doing that on chain. And it makes all the sense in the world why you would try to, a priori constitute your reward loyalty system on chain, because you can actually immediately see everybody's buying behavior and also retarget your users on the same platform where you can see that buying behavior. And the second is it's really privacy and data preserving, especially in Europe where there's GDPR. You're not storing any identity data about people. You're just looking at their buying behavior. And it's funny, like things like Google, again, speaking a little bit US centrically, but things like Google and Facebook, they're really gathering a lot of identity data and using that to extrapolate what your buying behavior would be. Well, with the blockchain, we're just starting with the buying behavior. And you just have what you want right there directly as a marketer. As a marketer, you only care about who people are in order to try to project what they're going to buy.
Yeah.
And here you can see everything they've ever bought. So it's the best CRM ever. And it makes all the sense in the world for brands to go there. And then with memberships, what we're seeing is really cool. We get to work with a bunch of high-end hotel brands, restaurants that are starting to introduce these membership programs that are pretty high cost in order to, go and be a member and get into a club at a fancy hotel. But people are willing to spend more money on these memberships if it takes the form of an NFT, because they could trade out of it.
Right.
They're not considering themselves as consuming the capital. They're thinking of themselves as maybe not investing in this case, but parking the capital, and that they'll be able to flip out of it if they don't need it anymore. And so that ends up spinning the flywheel faster and earlier for these membership programs.
No, that's really interesting because I'm really curious, like when you're talking to these brands like CMO, like what are the challenges, like getting them on board, like I bet they have like a lot of questions, like in terms of like how to really create that community. But as you said, like what are these guys asking you guys? I'm really curious about.
Yeah, so in 2021, when the NFT craze was taking over, we would meet the CMO or the CRO, and usually they came in looking for a quick buck. They wanted to figure out how to bring an NFT to market as quickly as possible, sell it, and get on out of there. And we would be the bearers of bad news that say, maybe you'll see a headline occasionally about this working, but in the majority that doesn't work. You actually need to have a team ready to be around this project long term. You can't just release some NFTs. You need to build an NFT community and have staffing for this project, have people managing the community, have people continuing to grow that roadmap. And then also, you're not going to be believable in Web3 unless you actually get to know how Web3 works, unless the program that you're launching is strengthening and augmentative to the existing Web3 community. And the best way to do that is to partner. with Web3 native brands and projects and communities. And you've seen folks like Prada, Adidas, make great partnerships with folks like G Money. You've seen native brands like World of Women
I
creating
bought all those
really
Adidas
high
things.
quality partnerships. Yeah, and you see this crossover with like the Pudgy Penguin toys. So
Yeah.
a lot of times we're seeing these juxtapositions of brands, of mainstream brands doing it well by partnering with Web3 natives.
Cool. Like I guess like that's where the two worlds collide, right? Like basically getting the Web 2 folks into Web 3. But like what do you see like the Web 2 crowd like audience versus Web 3 audience? Cuz like for marketing funnel, the traditional way of doing marketing is very different in terms of like outreaching these group of audience. So what's like the difference there?
Yeah, so in Web3, your audience is really a co-owner with you. They have shared intrinsic, extrinsic incentives. They're not a consumer at arm's length. They have skin in the game with you. And so this idea of community in Web3, it actually means something really specific. It collapses the categories of investor, builder, and user, which in Web3 and Web2 are really distinct. Those are really distinct categories in the traditional world and Web 2. And sometimes they even have adversarial interests to some degree. But in Web 3, you're using the substrate of Web 3 as an economic alignment engine to create an incentive system and plug people into it. So, what does that actually mean in practice? It means that those people are going to have an opinion about how you're building your product. They're going to have an opinion about the technology. They're going to have an opinion about the marketing. And they're going to be incentivized to be really vocal about it.
Yeah,
So,
very
one funny
vocal.
thing, very vocal because they're owners. So,
Yeah.
one funny thing we have with brands coming into this space, brands will come in and will share with them that your audience for whatever you're doing in Web3 is going to be a mix of two groups. It's going to be your existing fans from Web2 that are excited enough about whatever you're doing to come do this new thing, and it's going to be Web3 people. So everything you create is going to need to appeal to both, and it's going to need to feel like a native experience for both. So you need some way to onboard people who don't have a wallet, but you also need to be able to accept MetaMask or another self-sovereign wallet for natives coming in. So you need to honor and accommodate both of those two user journeys. You have to also understand those user personas. A Web 2 audience is used to being treated as a consumer. They're used to a centralized comms and marketing department that's telling them what's going on, what they can do, what they can't do, what they can say, what they can't. In Web 3, people will be your self-appointed PR person. They're gonna talk about your project as if they're one of the co-founders, and they're going to be super vocal all over Twitter. And so it's a cool opportunity because brands can attract the most engaged fans they've ever had, but they need to be aware that it cuts both ways. And by not understanding Web3, not coming into the community with the right dynamic, the right spirit, by diverting attention away from existing Web3 projects, you can really, the organ can really be rejected.
Right. I think that's a great time to bring on Ray Chan, the meme master himself, to talk about his experiences between his followers and his project, and see if it lines up with what you're talking about, Amanda. Ray,
The vocal community.
the vocal community.
No, I don't really make memes, although I'm the founder. But I think I want to take a step back, right? Because when I was checking out Amanda's book, right, and also her background, one thing that kind of like catch my eyes is you started a company before, right? And before joining Consensus, right? And there was a company. It's like a journalism platform where you share most of the revenue, right, with the writers and stuff. I think that kind of reminds me of what the Web3, most of the new Web3 projects they try to do is kind of like decentralize the value, right? Also decentralize the ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that experience with your previous company helps you to navigate the Web3 space because you already decentralize it before you even join Ethereum or
Yeah, know
join
what it is. Yeah, or is it
consensus, right?
for them?
Yeah.
It's funny that you know about that. It's actually kind of the other way around. So I started working for Ariana Huffington, um, who started Huffington Post. She really popularized this kind of media aggregation business model. And I saw the plight of content creators online and how hard it was to get remunerated for their work. You remember there's the Huffington Post blog where there were all these bloggers
Yeah,
blogging for exposure, not getting paid.
yeah,
It really introduced that model. And I worked there and I realized, with the double spend problem on the internet, with the ease of aggregating and linking, how difficult it was going to be. And also with social media taking over all the distribution, it was going to be really difficult for creators and publications to actually monetize. And I started looking into it and I learned that the original architects of the internet had intended for there to be a built-in value layer. There's such a thing in the original source code of the internet as a 402 error, not a 404 error, a 402 error, which is payment missing. And so, the original designers of the internet had intended for there to be native payments, but they didn't get around to it. And so we ended up having these attention-based business models layered on top of Web 2 as a lot of people started coming in order to be able to monetize it. You can only imagine how history would have been different if that had been there from the beginning. I really think of Web 3 as a novel realization of the original vision of the web that has that value layer built into it. And so when I was at HuffPost, I noticed that there was something wrong with, okay, we've democratized communications with the web, but we haven't democratized or we haven't linked up how value corresponds with those communications, right? And so that's why I left HuffPost to build Slant to see if we could find another model that would bring people in as owners and incentivize them to distribute content. This was before I really knew about blockchain or Web3. And so when I first encountered Ethereum, I encountered it as an accelerant to the thing that I was trying to do. And that's when I realized I needed to join the circus. And that's when I started contributing to the Ethereum project and eventually became CMO of Consensus. It was in that moment because it solved this problem that I had identified in my kind of neck of the woods.
Yeah, because I think what you mentioned, right, echoes with me a lot because I've heard, I think, yes, you the chairman of Animoca, he talked about, I think a lot of people kind of like see Web3 is just a new marketing term, right? But what he thinks is Web3 is kind of like reinvention, right, of what internet should be like, right? Because Web1, when internet was first started, is actually pretty open, right? It's actually pretty, I would say, creators in mind, right? Basically, companies should be built kind of like with a collaborative incentive and stuff like that. It's just that when Web2 was started, right, social media accelerates everything, especially on distribution, especially on the communication. But the value part is basically controlled by the platform because they make things so efficient that okay, people just go to the easiest route, right, when they do marketing and stuff, when they do advertising and stuff, right? And Web3 is almost like a wake-up call where we can go back to the basic. We can go back to first principle to think about how we should do things, right? And when I kind of like get a glance of your book, right? I think you mentioned that for Web3 marketing, it's kind of like that as well, right? Because you can't just use the Facebook or social media, just buy the post and do the arbitrage and stuff, right? You have to actually go back to think about your product, think about your users, and then to go reach out to them to build from the scratch, right? Instead of, okay, just optimizing the clicks and stuff like that, right? I mean, but that was like the 0.1, a 0 to 1 problem for Web3, right? Once, for example, like Consensus, right, or MetaMask or all the products, right, started to get the first million of users. How do you bring 1 to 10 and also for 10 to 100?
Yeah, so I think that people need to be impelled by their own use case to come into Web3. Like, I think it's so similar, so analogous to how people originally came onto the web. People came for different things. Some people came for games, some people came for shopping, some people came to look up facts, other people came for all kinds of things.
Memes.
And so it's going to be that same the memes, right? The cat memes. It's going to be that same diverse set of mechanisms. So for some people, it's going to be Nike or Adidas. For other people, it's going to be Sotheby's or Pace Gallery. But for other people, yet it's going to be decentralized finance applications that they wouldn't have access to otherwise, to be able to do novel things with their money. And for other people, it's going to be unbanked people or mobile first people that would rather transact in crypto than use the currency wherever they live. And so it's going to be so use case dependent. And what we're seeing is specialization of different platforms in those different use cases facing those audiences, but they all lead and converge in the same place. The days are gone when there's one super highway. Like there used to be 1, 2, 3 super highways where people would take their fiat currency, on-ramp it, turn it into Bitcoin, and sit there with the Bitcoin. That's not even an interesting thing to talk about in 2023. All of the other little capillaries are much more interesting than those super highways at this point. And you see those platforms diversifying to be able to play with more of the market than just that.
Got it. And then when you mentioned specialization, right? I mean, right, I think when you look back like 2 to 3 years ago, I think most of the crypto space, I think they talk about all kind of things. Right? Basically, you name an industry, and then some guys from crypto will tell you that, okay, I can use crypto to disrupt the industry. Right? And then after 2 to 3 years of, I would say, a cool down period, right? When you look back, which industry do you think that, okay, the crypto or blockchain use case is so obvious that we can't ignore it? Right? What are the some areas? What are some of the spaces that you feel like, okay, there should be a disruption with blockchain on that?
That was my question, but okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll answer this obliquely, but so crypto's parents were finance and technology. And so one of the most obvious things is banking. Long settlement times, non-fluidity of various sorts, financially, lack of access to various kinds of financial products. So that was one of the lowest hanging fruit. And then, so the parents are technology and finance. And so the people in the space are technology and finance people. But lately, it's been intersecting the arts. It's been intersecting luxury goods and retail, entertainment and media. And I think there's a reason we're seeing this convergence between Web3 and content of various sorts on the internet, because there is this missing value layer for content. So it's actually solving a really kind of missing problem. And I think that's going to continue through gaming, through fashion. But I do think that, like the guys that from your earlier story, I actually do think it's going to intersect everything. And the reason is because everything in its highest form, no matter what industry you're in, becomes some kind of financial product, becomes financialized in some way. And it also needs to exist online in some way, because that's where commerce increasingly happens. And so it's going to need to work over native value rails to the web. And then the next step here is AI is going to become, in the next 5 to 10 years, the entity that is undertaking the majority of all transactions. And AIs intrinsically live online. They're digital natives. They live on the computer. And so what do you think they're going to transact in order to provide transparency to human beings? Well, they're going to transact in cryptocurrency, and they're going to use Web3. And a lot of times when people complain about the UX of Web3, I sometimes start to think the UX of Web3 isn't even for you. It's a UX that mostly AIs are going to deal with and then present you, the human, with some kind of polished interface that's very easy to deal with, where they've wrapped together all those different data points. So that's where I think it's going, and the industries we're converging with.
I want to follow up on that too, because I know you have an in-house product studio. I think it's something that maybe you learned from Joe and what they did at Consensus, which is a great idea to see what you want. So you must see a lot of holes that you think needed to be filled. And so you would pick your choices. You built your own Mojito platform. What would you, some things just in general speaking, I guess, that you see there are holes right now that you think a startup could find an opportunity building something in that space? Because I know, Ray, you also have an answer for this question too. But Amanda, I want to ask you first.
Well, there are so many. And there are so many things from Web 2 that need to happen in Web 3. So like Franklin, which we just spun out, which was our second spin out company, noticed that back office, payroll, if you're using a payroll provider, it's really on Web 2 rails, and you can't, in a tax compliant way, pay your team in crypto from your treasury. And that was something we noticed when we were, so it was actually our director of finance who was talking to our clients, and she knew all the CFOs at those companies who were paying us. And they were asking her, do you have a tool that does this? What do you use? And she realized there was a gap in the market that way. And so she built Franklin. We supported her building it and spinning it out, helped her raise venture into it and create that company. And so here's my template for finding where there's a gap in the market. If there are a bunch of people asking, what do you use for this? It means there's a missing solution there. Or if there are people trying to throw money at you to do it. Oh, would you guys mind just doing this? Like there's no one else that'll do it. That means that there's demand pent up. And what you can do as an entrepreneur, see the demand like a river, dam it up and use it to irrigate something that you're building and growing.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think the Web3 movement, right? I think the direction has changed a little bit. I mean, at least from a founder's perspective, right? I think back to like 5 years ago, I think when Ethereum was still pretty new, I think a lot of the so-called competitors, right, they are focusing on, okay, I want to become like the infrastructure. Right now, when the infrastructure is kind of there, right, I think I would say the focus would be more on, okay, what exactly is the application, right, into different industry, into our daily life, right? That's why I see that when a project is launched, you can't just talk about the high level stuff. Just talk about, okay, we want to become the Ethereum killer and stuff like that. Not anymore. Right? I mean, you can still say that, but people don't believe that anymore, right? But I think how you can leverage the existing tech into building some products that people actually use, right? I think in the past, the building was kind of like decentralized. Okay, we have the fund and then we fund different companies to do it. But right now, I see that, in order to actually realize the application, there should be experienced team trying to build out products. They know how to do marketing. They know how to find the product market fit. Right? I feel like that's the direction. Right? When I look at Mojito as well as the company that you just mentioned, I think there will be a lot more companies that actually have experienced founders with other industry knowledge, but try to understand or using blockchain to build out something like that. Right? I have a friend's company. She is based in Singapore. And then she had a company called HQ.xyz. Is actually building the back office, the finance infrastructure for crypto company, right? For not crypto company, but for all companies using crypto, right? I feel like that's the direction, right? And I think for outsider, I think most of them, they still feel like, okay, I buy Bitcoin, just wait for it to increase in value, right? I buy some tokens just for speculation. But actually, there are a lot of people using the tech to disrupt different industry instead of just waiting for the price increase. They're creating value using the tech, not just, okay, hold the token and then sit there. Yeah, I think that part is actually the more exciting part than just, okay, what's the next token that will pump, right? And to be honest, right, most of us think that we are good traders, right? But most people suck at buying and trading crypto anyway. Right? I think the exciting part is you understand the opportunity and try to build something valuable to solve some existing problem. I think content, social media, back office, right? I think all those things, once you understand the ethos of Web3, you just can't go back, right? Just like when I talk to some friends at Coinbase, I think they mentioned that tons of multinational company, right? They're using USDC for internal settlement already, right? Because you don't have to wait for 4 days, right? 2 days, right? To settle the balances inside the company, right? And USDC is relatively more trustable, right? And that's why they just do it. And then it takes maybe like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, right? And then all things are on chain. Every record is done, right? And those are the things that outsider can't see. But when you actually work on the product, work on the blockchain, talk to the people in the industry, you see that disruption is happening, right? Maybe it's not like a revolution, but definitely there's a evolution. Yeah, Casey.
Yeah, that all really resonates with me, and it's remarkable, as an accomplishment of this space, that you can now send a fiat pegged ERC20 token instantly to any wallet in the world. I mean, that's a world of difference.
Yeah, I think one way that when I look at technology disruption is, on one hand, I think there are two things. I'm not the one that think about this kind of smart things, but I read about it, right? And one thing that I remember when Mark Andreessen, he talks about was actually a disruption is you make things that in the past only the smart people, only the talented people, only the rich people can do. Right now, you can make everyone do it. Then that's a disruption, right? For example, like Uber, right? Like Deliveroo, right? It's you have to be a rich guy in order to get your own driver, right? But right now, with a click of a button, then you can do it. Then this industry will be there, right? Maybe it's not Uber, maybe it's like another company, right? But the category will stay. I think for crypto, it's almost like that as well. When you look back, okay, I only need a wallet in order to receive the money that belongs to me, right? I don't have to fill out all the information. And then sometimes the bank will still reject it after 2 days, right? And then you have to do it over again. And also on the weekend, basically the wire, you just stop, right? You have to wait for the weekend or the long holidays. I think those are the things that feel so obvious that should be solved, but no one has solved it, right? At least not for the traditional banking people. Yeah, I mean, they talk about virtual bank and all kind of digital banking, right? But honestly, how come it takes so much time for you to do that? Most of the digital payment and stuff, it's so obvious that it should be done in a better way, right? But how come you have to wait for like Venmo or other apps to do it, right? So I feel like I mean, the exciting part is actually the disruption, right? And then I think that I feel like people kind of like overlooked is there are a lot of I think one of the issue for current Web3 is when people focusing on the incentive part, right? Then basically it's get distorted over time, right? For example, there are when you launch a new token, people will just farm it, right? They will think about, okay, how can we dump it, right? And then take profit and stuff, right? Amanda, what do you think about when people focus too much on the incentive? How can you communicate your long-term vision without being too harsh on them okay, you guys just want to take profit and stuff, right? How can you aggregate all those believers? Yeah.
I think you just have to kind of accept human nature for what it is a little bit and acknowledge that you're going to have some people in your community that plug into those incentives. And so I think you have to create intrinsic rewards as well as extrinsic rewards. And if you do a good job of that, people will plug into that, right? There are certain people involved with Ethereum that never cared about it except for as something to make money off of, that bought ETH tokens. And that's okay. But there are other people that behave differently. Why? What was up with it? Okay, here's what happened. Ethereum had its API of identity open, and people wanted to attach that you're the Ethereum meetup organizer, you're involved in the Ethereum community. You want to attach that to your identity because it's associated with optimism and building a future that's fair, that's open, that's permissionless, that's better than the system that we have today. And it was just such a cool technology itself, like for engineers and developers playing with it, that represented such a step forward that there was a real kind of like academic, scientific, and also like world bettering, altruistic set of intrinsic motivations that were made available to people. And Ethereum made itself available as something people could incorporate into their identities. And a lot of these early meetup groups really became like almost like support groups, like quasi-religious, very much like communities, very much families. And it was having that kind of intrinsic system open, in addition to all kinds of extrinsic systems, attracted people that were interested in the technology for what it was. So what you can't do is not have interesting technology, but expect technologists to earnestly flock around it because of its, you know, scientific potential. But if you genuinely, if you're trying to attract technologists, you're going to get them if you make a genuine tech breakthrough, if you make a genuine kind of academic progress, if you want brand people to care about it, make progress with how brands work. If you want people to care about environmentalism on chain, use blockchain to push forward the causes of environmentalism. That's how you're going to get intrinsically motivated people.
Yeah. Great. Okay. And just, we don't want to keep Amanda up too late here. So we just have a couple more questions, specifically with the book. I see a lot of people in the chat are asking if your book is available in their languages. So I don't know, how many languages is the book available in right now?
So right now it is only English, but exciting news, a Chinese publisher has bought the right to translate it into Mandarin and distribute it. So that's going to be coming out this year
So much
in Mandarin. And
I can't believe it.
So I'm going to share on my Twitter exactly when that's coming out. The date is still being determined. And I'm hoping there's a Mandarin audiobook. I obviously am not going to be able to, I guess not obviously, maybe I'll learn, but I'm not currently able to record that one myself. And I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it in Cantonese. I'd love to see it in, you know, a bunch of different languages. I'd love to see it in Korean and Japanese at the very least.
We got a Portuguese request and a Turkish request. The audience is very international.
Oh, Turkish is underway. Turkish is underway, actually. Turkish is underway. Someone reached out to me on Twitter offering to translate it, and I actually connected her with the publisher, and the publisher is now talking to her about doing it. So I wouldn't assume that anything is so far away from you or so at arm's length that you couldn't, you know, come and do something. You know, come do something with me. Reach out to me. This is all very participatory.
Okay, and the final question. Your book really does break down Web3 and gives chapters to all the things that everybody should know who may not know. DeFi, NFTs, DAOs, dApps, Metaverse, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the nature of publishing, obviously the book is written ahead of time, and also Web3 moves so fast, you probably couldn't get in any other emerging tech that's happening today. I found out something called ETH-scriptions today. I don't know what it is. I got to read about it. But what do you leave? Why did you leave out of the book, maybe because of this? Or if you were to update it or do a revised edition like this time next year, what would you include, or what do you hope you would to include in it?
I don't know whether ETH-scriptions would necessarily make the cut yet for something that needs like its own chapter of the book. But when I go through all the different types of tokens, for example, I didn't have soulbound tokens in there. Because soulbound tokens are, and a soulbound token is a token that goes to a wallet, it stays in that wallet, it can't be traded to another wallet. So, and that's something that's really being worked on right now that a lot of brands are thinking about. We saw the recent, who was it? It was, I want to say like,
LV.
It wasn't,
yeah,
it was LV.
Louis Vuitton,
it was LV, did the drop of the trunks, and those each came with a soulbound token. And so I didn't have that as one of the mechanisms in there. And if I were writing the book right now, I would do that. I'm going to tell you guys something funny about a soulbound token, though. You can just have the keys to the wallet that has the soulbound token in it. You can tokenize those and float those on the open market. So people are still trying to figure out exactly how to do that, because there's still a pretty obvious workaround.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, Amanda, hey, thank you so much. We've kept you a little bit longer than we hoped to, but thank you so much for spending time
Amanda.
on the show.
It's a total honor. Thank you so much for having me. And I also hear that I should say, wishing everybody here good health for the Dragon Boat Festival. And I think Zongzi dumplings sound really yummy. So maybe at some point we'll get to share some when we open up that Hong Kong office.
Yeah, we'll bring
Today
you
is
around
a public
in Hong
holiday.
Kong.
Yeah, today is a public holiday in Hong Kong, but Web3 never sleeps. Yeah,
Yep.
that's why we are working. Yeah.
So I hear.
GM
I
on
have
the
some
Dragon Boat.
Chinese teammates that are sending me all kinds of articles about Dragon Boat. So I'm getting up to speed. Hope to meet a lot of you there. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
See you soon. All right. That was
Okay.
great. Amazing. Okay.
Thanks, Ray. But I want Ray to stay because we are having a live poll segment about where are you from and what you like about the show. So we have some like really good feedback from the community, and guess what? It's just not Asia audience here. There are a lot of people from everywhere, from a lot of different places. So I just want to read some like really
the guy wanted the book from Turkey, and the guy from Brazil there. So I don't know in those places, but they're up really late or really early, so it's amazing.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the show where we when we announce like the guest, and then people start harassing the guests as well.
They all want to know. And man, it's like, why do people want me to reveal something? I don't understand.
Exactly. So our audience are very like come from everywhere, and very different people as well. So Goldilocks here. Hi, Goldilocks. From GM from Singapore. What I like about the GM show is how it is a breath of fresh air that sets us apart from other regular Web3 podcasts. And the focus is more than just learning, but includes a lot of fun sharing with humility with invited speakers, and love the unique personal touch. So that's very positive. And Wade Anthony said from Pittsburgh, DC in the US, I like the consistency and the fact that it's real things being said, but without serious tone. So a smile and laugh goes a long way. Well, we're trying to keep it fun and feels like human, not bot speaking. Well, we're definitely not bots.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I think this is like these are very interesting comment, right? And that kind of like echoes what we want to do with GM show, right? I think, I mean, there are dramas in Web3 every single day. All kinds of dramas, right? Between creators, right? Between projects, between holders, between communities, right? I think, but the thing is, when you look back, 1 year later, right? People won't give a fuck about all of those, right? not even 10 days.
Not even
right?
not even one day.
Week, right?
Yeah.
Yet we spend most of our time talking about that every single day, right? Of course, people will be unproductive, right? When we focus on shit like that, right? I think for us, we want GM show to be a show that, okay, when you listen back a year later, you still find some germs in it, right?
Yeah.
That would be a success for us, right? And I mean, when we were first starting NineGet, I read a lot of books by Seth Godin. He talks about, okay, news or so-called breaking news is nothing breaking, right? Yeah. I mean, when everything is urgent, nothing is urgent, right? I think the true value lies into if it is still important a year later, 10 years later.
Yeah.
If it is,
100%.
right, then it's something that's worth doing for a long time, right? That's why we started Memeland. That's why we started NineGet. That's why we are launching MemeCon and stuff, right? But at the end of the day, I think I wish more people will focus on long term instead of just the everyday drama. And I feel so hopeless, right? Because the space is so toxic, blah, blah, blah. It's true. The space, every day when you look at it, is fucking toxic, right? But when you look
positive.
At the bigger picture,
we know
it's very bullish, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Smoky Pipe here said, I like GM show because it's not just about Memeland. It's good to educate yourself in Web3. And that's exactly why we are inviting all these different builders in this show. It's just to show you like different perspective in this space. It's not just about NFT. It's about, like getting brands on board. It's about like mass adaptation. So it's a lot of just one aspect, profit, type of audience. Also here Lila Q said, I'm from Germany. I like get together like the GM show for the community feel and some alpha, of course. And here, Jean KMKZ said, "Hi from Malaysia. The ABC of the show and the last episode really onboarded me as a listener." So he's from a Suki community. So thank you so much for coming back again. All Surrender said, "From Hong Kong, the fact that I no longer hold Memeland assets but can still enjoy the community."
Fine.
That's like,
I won't talk to you anymore. Yeah, you are dead to me.
but
You're
but
dead
you
to
can
me.
listen to us. But you can
You
listen,
can listen to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you are dead to me.
You're dead. That's all.
Oija from Indonesia said, "Love the idea of GM show being on Spotify. Not really a morning person, so being able to listen to it at night with interesting speaker and some snacks really made my night." Okay, so that's really around the world we're talking to. Well, thank you so much for all the support, and I guess we'll wrap up the show.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna talk about something else? I thought we were gonna give away something.
Well, we just I just want to repeat like what I just said before about like the giveaway last week. We have selected the 69 winners on Twitter on our last week meme coin waitlist code giveaway. I know people are still asking give me codes. So the give me codes hype continues. And we will make an announcement soon. So please check out our tweets and instructions how to claim your code.
That FUD, or not that FUD, but that kind of anticipation with all these Instagram cartoons being with all your little potatoes.
I know.
Reveal.
So we're not helping the hype, but we're hopefully calming everyone else with a song.
We are. So we're gonna exit out with our hit song from Karen. Give me code.
Give me codes.
Give me codes.
Give me the goddamn codes.
Give me the goddamn codes.
All right, just a reminder, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I haven't uploaded last week's episode. I'm sorry, I'm going to do it right after.
Give me codes.
But you can get last week's Suzuki episode, and you'll get this one sooner because I'm slow.
Give me the goddamn codes.
Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and tell people and tell us.
Give me the fucking waitlist code.
Or actually rate us on the podcast if you listen to podcasts, so more people can see it.
Give me the codes.
Thanks to Amanda. Thanks to Ray. Thanks to Karen. Thanks to me. Thanks to everybody who listened. We'll see you next week. The same meme time, same meme channel. We have a very exciting guest. We're going to announce it early. Probably Monday, because this one is going to be big. So we want you to come and join us for that. Yeah. Anything else, Karen?
Give me the codes.
Well, stop asking us for codes.
Give me the goddamn codes.
Fuck, give me the fucking waitlist codes.
Right. See you next week.